Hi, I'm Dr. Mike, and this is NFGeeks. Well, this is an Ask Dr. Mike video every Sunday on the NFGeeks Facebook forum. People post questions for me to answer in a video form, and whoever's question gets the most likes wins. And this video is for Jared Clark Roberts, an INTJ. And he asks a very profound question, and obviously he's an INTJ, and but short but hard to answer. So let's see what it is. So Jared asks, what is your explanation of intuition? Is it some mystical psychic power of the unconscious that we intuitive types possess, as Jung implied, a differing neurological process, or something else? So this is great. What he's asking basically is humanity's capacity to have abstract thought. That's what he's asking. He's asking the big questions, the huge question. It certainly is. Because I've been trying to think about it. What answer should I give? It's so broad and vast, but we'll see where we go. So first, I'm actually going to start in the middle. Let's talk about neurology and biology for a little bit, and then, kind of start there. Not that that's necessarily the origin of intuitive, the intuitive function, or the logos of the intuitive function. It's my new word I've been using a lot of. I don't know that it's that, but I think it's a good place to start because it's the easiest part to understand, at least, get through. So let's just accept the fact that that there is a connection, and that the intuitive process has some kind of corresponding neurological system in the brain. Either some kind of network, some kind of connection to a hemisphere or a lobe, or something like that, that it's in there, and that when the intuitive process is working, something neurological is happening within the brain that is observable in the sense that it's measurable in some way. So that's some of the work that, as many of you know, Dario Nardi is doing, the person whose name everyone drops in order to sound smart. Right? Him? You might be thinking that I'm saying that because I want you to drop my name to sound smart. No, that's not true. You don't drop NFGeeks to sound smart. You drop NFGeeks to sound cool. It's not the same thing. But obviously he's been spearheading work, and everybody's very sort of fascinated by it. So there is something neurological going on, or at least we have somebody on our team trying to do that, trying to show that there is something neurological going on. Now, I don't think that's necessarily wrong. You'd think as an NF, an NF would be like, no, it's got to be mystical. Mystical things, or anything abstract, has its origins in the physical world, has to have some sort of, connection to the physical world somewhere, otherwise we wouldn't be able to know it. You can't know something that isn't somehow either directly in the physical world or implied in the physical world, otherwise you can't get there. There's got to be something to that. So what I want to do is sort of discount that there's a materialist foundation to it, meaning that that it's a foundational, that intuitiveness starts in the brain. It starts in the physical. It's located in the physical. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think there's something going on that connects to the physical, to the physiological, the material, neurons, tissue, whatever, neurotransmitters, whatever, chemicals are going on in between things. I think there's something to that in the sense that they're connected, but I wouldn't say that the brain is the foundational, to that. It's simply the physical manifestation of abstract thought, or perhaps you could even say the path to which abstract thought takes, going through something. So it's there. The neurological process is there, but I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the foundation of it. Now we get into the more abstract parts of abstract thinking, and this question has been going on a long time. Philosophy has been batting this around forever. This is basically you're asking, how do we know the ideal forms? That you want to know, how does anamnesis work? And can we get to the good? And that you're asking all the Platonic stuff. That's how long this has been going on. I mean, essentially, this is almost Plato thought regarding all this. Um, the mystical part we'll get in a second because I have something to say about that. But I had this thought. I'm going to relate it back to the physiology that intuition. And this is true of all the functions. The question's about intuition, so I'm keeping it to intuition. But intuition must have evolved out of a process of natural selection and adaptation, you know. And if that's the case, it also had to have evolved in a sense of mutation. So somewhere along the time, there were mutations in the brain of animals that, and even who knows, further than that, reptiles, maybe even fish, I don't know. But that it went back in time, that somehow there was a mutation that led to a difference in the brain that then led to intuition, or intuition occurring more frequently or more easily. It must have followed that path, that there must have been some sort of adaptability going on where the mutation stuck, I like to think I like that thought. That's probably true of all the functions, though, before everyone gets, well, I'm a sensor. Does that mean no? Sensing also went that path. But there's something weird that somehow abstraction allowed us to, evolve, and move forward and do things like that. People always, the common misconception of humanity is that humanity in the Paleolithic era, started going past animals, whatever, when they invented the wheel. That's an old thing, the wheel. And granted, that's technology, and wheels are important. But really, what preceded that really separated humanity from the animals was fire, the ability to control fire. That was big. And it may not seem like a big deal because we all have stoves and lighters, and fire comes easy. But the understanding of what fire was, and the ability to construct it, the ability to control it, the ability to use it, that's something that was new in the animal world. No one was able to use fire before. It's the beginning of technology starts with fire. So there had to be some sort of conceptualization about fire in order to control fire. So it goes really far back. But whether it's mystical or not, it's I personally, I guess I should talk, instead of intellectualizing it, talk about my own experience with it and feeling with it. And that it depends what you mean by mystical. It is sort of abstract and sort of non-physical in that, through the intuitive process, you're making connections that are not actually observable with the senses, are not directly implied by the senses. There's some sort of abstraction in the mind of ideas or whatever that make that happen. So there's something, some sort of, even though it's theoretical, the theory is being projected onto a reality that is making the reality understandable, but isn't directly sensed from the reality. You can see that a lot in physics, like any kind of, even basic physics, like Newtonian physics. The equations about gravity and all that. You're not actually, observing that directly. You're observing movement, but what does that mean? You're certainly not observing space-time being warped. That's, Einstein stuff. That's an abstraction that's being, projected onto reality, and yet allows us to understand it, make predictions, things like that. And it's kind of funny because if we evolved to do that, then evolution, that more complex evolution, is dependent on having the ability to project abstract concepts onto a reality that are not being directly observed. I mean, people say, well, they are being directly observed. No, the parts that make up a theory is being observed, but the theory itself is not being observed. Okay, and then under any context, under any situation, it's not being directly observed. You're not observing the mathematical equations of gravitational pull, of acceleration. You're barely observing the acceleration. You know what I mean? You may not even be realizing things are increasing speed as they fall. So think about it. There's a lot going on that you're not observing. That's being somehow intuited. Hence the name intuition. It's tough to see. Mystical is tough because I don't know, and that doesn't mean they're not. But I don't know that NTs have a mystical experience. Or we have to change our definitions of mystical. Okay, I think that NTs have a very complex abstract experience. That's for sure. But I mean, mystical to me implies a direct emotional contact, subjective contact with reality beyond rational thought. Okay, and that's what I'm saying. I don't know if NTs are having that specific experience. Okay, that's not a detriment. That's not a criticism. I'm saying that I don't know what your experience is as an NF. So, and I'm trying to draw the line because of what's what. Because do I think NFs have a mystical experiences? Yes. I absolutely think that we have mystical experiences, and that's because we talk about them all the time. And we talk about them more than you know. We just don't talk to them to you. Sometimes one of the stupid ones, an NF that didn't listen to me will go off and start talking to the NTs about auras and things. It's like, no, don't talk about those things. That's a little bit of a joke. But the mystical experience, as I'm defining it, is a very NF experience. Because it allows for the subjective. So then, therefore, we have to wonder, not so much that NTs don't have a mystical experience, but, and dare I say it, was Carl Jung really using the term correctly, okay, in terms of explaining it, all right? Because I think one of the issues we have with NTs and NFs is that, NTs will say, well, we have mystical experiences too, and blah, 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 and it's because we're fighting over the fact that Carl Jung said it, and we both want to own Carl Jung and be part of Carl Jung's team and whatever. But I think that his use of the term might not be right because he's assuming the term applies straight across the board. And so now I have to say something more controversial about this, and that is that his defining of it and his own experiences, if you read them in the Red Book, okay, honestly make it seem that he is an NF and not an NT. Okay, he does not seem. The more I read the Red Book, and the more I think about it, the less NT he becomes. And I assumed that he was an NT, just like everybody else. Like, oh, I guess he's an NT, INTP. I don't know. So they say, okay. I just went with it. Until I got the Red Book and started reading it for my dissertation, I didn't really start thinking about how NF he was, and also how some of these experiences are specific to temperament. So it's kind of tough to here's what, because I'm saying it's a lose-lose for NTs, in this thing where they're going to choose, or they could just choose a third thing, which is I'm totally stupid and I don't know what I'm talking about. That's fine, but I think there's two choices. One, if we accept Jung's definition of the mystical, then we really have to question if NTs are having that experience, okay, if they're sharing in it with NFs or not, or we have to assume that Carl Jung is talking about the NF version of the mystical, which would make him an NF, because a lot of this is based on his own feelings and expressions and all this. So, we have to take that into account. I'm leaning, obviously, on the side that Carl Jung is an NF, okay, because he seems very NF to me in all his writings and all his behaviors and his experiences and childhood experiences, okay. Again, the more I read it, the more NF he sounds. So therefore, we need another word besides mystical, Although mystical means mystery, I view it as the mystery. I don't view mystical as meaning magical. I guess I should say that. I don't think it's a magical experience. I think it's a mysterious experience, an experience that cannot be explained, okay? And that might be trouble for the NT, because my personal definition of it is a mystical experience is a non-rational experience. That doesn't mean it's irrational, and rational can be in it somewhere, but at some point, rational thought drops off and you can't explain it because it's a completely subjective, non-rational experience. I base that on the way INFJs talk when they get into their meditative, weird places, and they get into some strange places without drugs, without any of that stuff. They just get into this place. So that's I always think of that when I think of the non-rational part. I think of INFJs, and it's subjective, and obviously, I think, in my opinion, subjective. So all right. So, but then, then we get back to the question again. What is the intuitive? What do we possess? What is it the ability to do? Where is it coming from? Well, I think that it's tough to talk through the metaphors, but it's the ability to see reality behind reality. So the intuitive, what it is that it's the ability on the inside to sort of construct reality in a way that allows for a frame to take place. So in other words, it's more like taking a frame and saying, look, this is what this is through this frame. Okay? It's the ability to kind of set up something in such a way that you can understand it without having to physically do anything. to it. The entire manipulation is in the mind. Okay, so it's more of, I mean, it's part mystical, but it's really more of something, dare I say it, something metaphysical. Okay, I think if we look at it metaphysically, then NTs and NFs can come together. And again, there's some NTs who are into philosophy, like, no, that's even worse. I don't think so. I like metaphysics, that's why. I think it's fun, the reality behind the reality, and all that cracks me up. So, but if we take it as a metaphysical, meaning that it's sort of the ability to come into contact with principles or forces that are beyond reality but are not necessarily bound to it, but are shaping it, I think that actually gets both, at least that gets NT and NF together. Because then we could say, oh, we are actually experiencing the same thing. We're having the ability to get into touch with metaphysical ideas, the universals of the particulars and things like that. We're able to get sort of beyond the universe and understand something together. Or we may not be understanding the exact same thing, we may be looking at it from different sides, but we can still see it. We can go beyond beyond the physical. And it's not even like that we literally can go beyond the physical. We can conceptualize what is beyond the physical. That's what we can do. And that's why a lot of the best theologians in time are actually NTs. All the great theologians are NTs, really. Aquinas, absolutely an NT. So that's been going on for centuries, millennia. So there's a part of NT that has owned and been a part of metaphysics, and throughout, honestly, philosophy, even not just religion. Because the thing about metaphysics, getting a little side here, is that metaphysics is like, when you're in philosophy, okay, metaphysics is like the opposite sex. Can't live with them, can't live without them. Okay, philosophy, no matter what philosophy you have, or every philosophy paradigm tries to get rid of metaphysics only to, like, invent their own metaphysics. Okay, either specifically or just accidentally, inventing it. So, what is going on then is that there's something, we're in touch with something metaphysical, and that would mean that consciousness itself has a part of it is metaphysical. And I actually do believe that, because there comes a point where you can, and this comes out of, I'm sort of twisting Descartes here, but you can't be unaware of your own awareness. You get to a point where consciousness becomes the foundation of whatever it is that's being experienced, and you can't get that. You can't get outside of that, and there's the whole idea that reality is consciousness. You can't experiencing. What is the sound of NFGeeks, in the forest if no one there is watching, that kind of thing. But you have to. There's no choice but to accept consciousness as some sort of thing, even though it does not exactly exist in space-time. Okay, so there's a part of us that doesn't exist in space-time. Okay, our consciousness. It's sort of bound but not bound by space-time, but at the same, which is coming into contact things that are beyond space-time. Ideas, even just basic things, basic theories. That you can't directly observe. It's still sort of beyond the universe. Where is it coming from? And so there's something metaphysical that's experiencing its own metaphysical self. And that is really kind of what Plato was trying to get at with the ideal forms and the soul. I love him. I love Plato. Okay. Another book. You want to impress me? Okay. Read The Republic. Okay. Forget Catcher in the Rye. Throw that away and go get The Republic. Now that's a book. Okay. That's a real book. But, that's what I'm saying. It's a very, very old question. Now, I don't know if that answers it correctly, because I don't know if that's really true. Like, this is, again, who knows where, this is a tough question. You go round and round and round on it. There's no way to validate that either. I can't invalidate my own consciousness, but I can't validate metaphysics at the same time. And we got to go with metaphysics, I think, and not the mystical. Otherwise, well, I have to, because otherwise I can't give it to you, NTs. I can't give it to you. Okay, you are not experiencing what the INFJs are experiencing. Totally are not. They're the ones who are the most quiet about this stuff, because theirs is the most whacked out. So, but they tell me, and I can tell you that you're not having what they're having, and they're having weird mystical experiences. So, I don't think we can go by that definition of mystical. Again, that means we got to change Carl Jung. Carl Jung doesn't get to be, young Jesus. okay, with foundational truth. But I'd rather do that. So, um, so my answer then is, see if I can say it succinctly, is that my explanation is that that intuitives are having an experience of the metaphysical by being in touch with their own metaphysical selves of consciousness. Okay. And so because of that, because we're more aware, we're more conscious. We'll say consciousness is foundational. That's easy. So we have this consciousness, and this consciousness, our consciousnesses are more aware of the metaphysical. Okay, they are metaphysical and are more conscious of the metaphysical, and we're able to grasp the metaphysical through abstractions of reality. That's what I think's going on. And apparently some sort of mutation in the brain has allowed that to take place. Okay? And finally, that mystical, as I describe the mystical as a subjective emotional experience, non-rational experience of the oneness of reality, is kind of NF's domain. And if that's the case, then we really have to kind of accept that Carl Jung was an NF. So, all right, so that's it, boy. But I could go on, but I don't want this to be any longer. So, all right. Feel free to delve into all of that.